So let's start by drawing our knees into the chest and just rocking a little bit side to side. Pro tip for anyone who feels extra tight in their low back. You can slide your blanket or your block just under the bottom of your hips. So I'm trying to get the top of the block in line with the bottom of my tank top here. And as you draw your knees into your chest, you'll get a little bit more stretch just along your low back, and that should feel nice if that's an area of tightness for you. Let your eyes close, and just get a little warm and cozy with yourself. Imagine you're floating in the float spa, floating in the womb, if your imagination allows you to go there. And just truly settle in. One of the biggest differentiators between yoga and yoga asana and other movement is just the intention that we set with it. So we're intending to stay really rooted and present with ourselves, our thoughts, our possibilities. Our breath. And as you are ready, go ahead and gently release your legs and set your feet down to the ground. Rise your hips. Block off to the side. Knees come back into your chest. And reach your legs up towards the ceiling. So I really like to start with just some simple calf stretches like this. So one toe comes back, then the other set of toes point away. So flex one foot and point the other. Dorsiflex and plantar flex if you took anatomy. And you can still have your eyelids at half mast. What's great about what we're doing right now is this is a little bit of a nerve glide. Not completely, but a little bit of one. It's a little shadow of a nerve glide. So for those of us who have kind of chronic tightness, it can actually do more than you think it will. It can kind of make your nerves happier before you just yank on them in a big stretch. And so now, shake out your legs. Oscillation also works really well with your nervous system. And this can also help your hips and your ankles and your hamstrings to feel better. And then we're going to do a little bit of a V shape with the legs. I'm going to turn on a diagonal so you can see. And the legs are going to be just a little bit open and then squeeze at the top. A little bit open and squeeze at the top. There are two ideas behind this. But the biggest one is to start to turn our core on. As you squeeze the legs, there's a principle called irradiation, which makes the muscles of the abdomen start to engage. We open and we squeeze, principle of irradiation, muscles of the abdomen start to engage. Open, squeeze, engage. Open, squeeze, engage. Now you can add to this a little bit. If you're looking for a more gentle practice today, just kind of whirly-bird your legs a bit. And if you're looking for something a little bit more vigorous, you can squeeze and actually lift your pelvis a little bit off the floor. So that takes a bit of rectus abdominis. You could also have your elbows there, engage your lats to get a little bit more height, or even a little bit more than that. As you do this, make sure that your neck muscles are not trying to do the work for your abs. And then last couple of revolutions. As you are ready, draw your knees into your chest, rock a little side to side. And let's go ahead and totally, completely rock to one side. Prop yourself up on your elbow. So we're going to get a little bit of shoulder stability from just being posted on the elbow like this. It's almost like a side sphinx pose from yoga. And we're going to reach the spare arm up towards the sky and then dive it under. A little bit of a twist, a little bit of dynamic shoulder stability, and a lot of breath in pranayama. Inhale, open, exhale, dive. Inhale, open, exhale, dive. Inhale, open as you reach. Imagine you're getting longer from elbow to fingertip. Exhale, dive. And last one. Inhale, open. Exhale, dive. Good. So, top hand roots to the floor. Top leg may straighten out or it may stay bent. And you're going to press your knees forward towards the short edge of your mat and just push your hips up. So this starts to work your outer hips, your obliques, of course those shoulder stabilizers still. And we'll exhale, lower down, come onto the belly. Bend your knees and swish your feet right and left. This movement, by the way, is intended to be more about the hips than about the low back. So if you're feeling it strong in the low back, I recommend that you kind of like put your hand on your low back the way I have and just get your hips focused on this action. So that would be the thigh bone twisting in the socket, turning in the socket. We're gonna switch to the other side. So never mind me, I'm gonna actually spin around. But if you can remember, you might not have to spin around. Prop yourself up on your elbow. And for starters, let's inhale, spare arm, free arm up towards the sky. And exhale, dive it under. Inhale up. If you have a little 1 pound or 2 pound weight, or even more than that if you'd like to, you can always engage with that. As the arms reach, imagine you're getting longer from elbow to fingertip. And last one, curl it under, rise it up. We're going to place that top hand down onto the floor, either straightening your top leg and keeping your bottom leg bent, or keeping both knees bent, knees towards the short edge of your yoga mat, float your hips, option to reach your arm again here too. So engage through the obliques, a lot more shoulder work. Speaking of Sphinx pose, go ahead and settle to your belly again. And this time, stay on your elbows. Elbows can be wider than your shoulders, by the way. So if it feels a little too crunchy to have your elbows under your shoulders, don't be shy, let them go a little bit wider. And we're gonna just look over one shoulder and then pull the heel in on that side. Look over the other, pull the heel in on that side. I'm gonna interrupt whatever thoughts you might be having right now to ask you where your mind is. Can you create that awareness and bring it right back here? Get curious about the sole of your foot, or about the sensation in your body, or about the textures on the floor, or about whatever tension you might be holding in your jaw. Can you get really present to that which exists in this moment? From here, elbows are pulling back isometrically. It's almost like you're tractioning your spine. And then see if you can lift one arm up and lower it down. Other arm up, feel free to straighten the arm and lower it down. So this takes core, spinal stability, and shoulder stability. Place both hands to the side of your ribs. Drop your chin. This is going to help you to engage the core. Pull your shoulders kind of up, back, and down. You can roll them a couple times if you'd like. And then, just like there's a basketball coming at your rib cage, just pull your ribs up. Try to come into that half plank position on your knees. Glutes are engaged. Press through the crown of the head, and then start to walk your hands out a little bit in front of you. Grip your hands down into the floor. Curl your toes. Rise up into a regular old plank, maybe the hands a little bit in front of the shoulders. And then drop one knee and then the other. Drop one and then the other. I'm going to tell you personally, when I'm doing plank, I have to think to turn my hip flexors off and to turn my glutes on. So I'm going to invite you into that awareness as well. So here's what turning the hip flexors on is going to look like. It's going to look a little bit like this, like butt up to the sky. But really, it's going to feel like a gripping in the front of the hip. So when I put my knee down, if I'm feeling a lot of the front hip on the left, I'm actually going to settle my knee fully down and really straighten the back one, thinking about kind of purposefully isometrically engaging the glutes. So if you've been doing this the whole time, I apologize. That was a lot of words. 3, 2, 1, glutes engaged, right? Come onto hands and knees, and then that leg that was behind you, just float it up. Here's the trick. Torso stable, arms stable, leg moving. To make it more challenging, but also to give yourself a little more feedback, if the right leg's up, left hand comes to the abdomen or to your low back. Last circle, maybe switch directions if you haven't already. And then draw your knee in towards your elbow. So not towards your nose, but towards your elbow. Set your foot and then rise up into a half kneeling position. Interlace your fingers behind you. I'm going to recommend whatever leg you have forward right now, that be the thumb on top. Interlace your fingers, squeeze your shoulder blades, lift the chest. Ribs stay in, so we're not popping the ribs out. Ribs stay in. Ears back. Drive the knuckles down. Float the arms off your back. Stay connected to breath. Nice and tall from the knee through the crown of the head. Slowly release. Hands come down to the inside of that front foot. You can stay on the same side, fingertips as you float the leg up and back. Other leg reaches. Plank-like quality in that leg. Float it up to your half bird dog. Shift your weight into your opposite hand. So left leg, if the left leg is up, right hand to your belly, and start to draw some circles. One of the things that we have to kind of walk a fine line on in the world of movement science is encouraging folks to have individual motor control over a particular joint, in this case the hip, as opposed to the low back, switch directions. While also really recognizing that your hip is never ever in real life going to move in isolation. So it's totally okay that there's little wiggles and wobbles in your spine, in your torso, in your standing leg. But hand comes down, come into the left fingertips, draw the left knee to that left elbow, set it down and rise up. But the idea is that we're building up that stability and control. Standing leg is engaged, glutes active. Left leg is forward now, so we're going to put the left thumb on top. Start this time with your elbows bent. You're still in a straight line from your standing knee through the crown of the head. This, by the way, is a great place to add a blanket under your knee. Ribs down, crown of the head towards the ceiling. Float the arms away as you straighten your elbows. Notice if this changes anything for you. Ears back so you're not in a forward head position. A lot going on, even though it looks really simple and boring. That feels good between my shoulder blades, by the way. I hope the same for you. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, hands down to the inside of your front foot. Float this front foot, step it back, find your way to table. And then blanket or no blanket, I just moved mine aside because I've got a lot going on here. You're gonna grab whatever small object you have. It could be a little cup that won't spill. It could be a yoga block, etc. Rock back into something that looks like child's pose. If your knees don't feel comfortable here, blanket's gonna go between your knee and your calf. Your arms are gonna reach out in front of you, back of the neck long. You can be elevated a little bit here, but you don't wanna be way up here, right? So forehead resting, forehead a little elevated. Find your spot, and then with a straight arm to warm up your shoulder blade, start to chop over the rainbow of this object in front of you. Notice that it's not directly in front of you in line with your nose. It's a little out to the side, the same side arm that you're starting with. I want you to feel your shoulder blades moving, reaching. You can even kind of spider crawl your fingers out so you get that extra length elevation of the shoulder blades. And then we'll switch sides. Reach. Extra spider length. And then chop. The trick here that a lot of us are doing without realizing it is we're bending the elbow. So I would love for you to keep the elbow as straight as humanly possible. And last one, now we're ready. Downward facing dog. Block or object off to the side. Root your fingertips into the floor. So it's okay if your second, your last and your middle knuckle kind of float up, but the rest of your hand you want to be for real on the floor. Especially base of the first finger, especially the heels, the hands. Toes curl, legs engage, arms engage. Short down dog, totally okay for the beginning of our practice, and also for life, because it's not about performing. All of the shakes, all of the shifts and shimmies. From down dog, go ahead and lower your knees down to the earth. Walk your hands back. And it can be handy to have something like a block here, but it's completely not mandatory. So here's what the block's gonna do. It's gonna put a little bit less weight through the arms, or just create a little bit more leverage. So you can open one knee to the side and then the other, right? Feel free to do this with your hands on the floor. And then we're gonna walk it right back out to something that looks like down dog, and then walk your hands to the back of the yoga mat. Notice the purposeful bend in my knees. Keep that head hanging heavy like a ripe piece of fruit. Shift your weight a little side to side, still inviting the nervous system to get happier with this position of the hips and of the spine, rather than cranking on it straight into a straight leg forward fold, Uttanasana. Speaking of Uttanasana, Ardha Uttanasana, crown of the head reaches. Exhale, knees bend and fold, full Uttanasana, shake it out. Walk your hands out, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Super charged arms. Inhale to your tiptoes, walking feet back as needed, plank. Scoop the belly, squeeze the glutes. 3, 2, 1. Lower down just one knee. You're gonna pivot on that knee, back heel down, open, opposite arm to the sky. Exhale, dive it under. Feel free to do this, as I mentioned, with a 1 pound weight, 2 pound weight, whatever you got. small is probably better to start with. And then as the arm comes up this next time, lift also your back leg, bend your knee. This is a nice little hover. And then park your foot to the floor in front of you. Bottom arm's gonna be working pretty hard for a moment. So root down, lift this bottom leg, kick it out if you've got the space. Scoop, down, down. Find your way again to plank. From plank, squeeze your bum. Roll to your tiptoes. Optional knees down. Elbows can be as wide as needed for chaturanga. Open the heart. Feel free to squeeze shoulders behind you. Exhale, reduce, relax down. Scoop your ribs. Rise up. Half plank or chaturanga. Back to downward facing dog. We've got another side, but before we go over the side, let me just invite you through that version of the vinyasa again, because it's a little different from what you might normally get, right? From down dog, inhale forward. From plank, roll to your tiptoes. Now, if you're working to build strength and stability, like especially if you feel that you injure your shoulders pretty frequently, you can scoop your belly and then just take your time here. It's less weight than if you're fully in chaturanga with the knees up. So it's not cheating, especially if you go slower, you're actually spending more time in it. I like to interlace the fingers and switch the thumb that's on top, or just go kind of hands-free. This wakes up the back muscles more than the triceps, which we already worked in our lowering down. And then finally, that last little bit, you have to really scoop through the front body in order to stay stable as you lift. Otherwise, you're coming into a back bend and kind of flinging your butt back. So, stable scoop, downward facing dog. Find your way to plank. Other knee down. Pivot on that knee, pivot on that back foot, sole of the foot down, top arm reaches towards the sky. Take it under and dive. And up. Optional light-ish weight. I used to have all sorts of thoughts and judgments about what was and wasn't yoga, and particularly when it applied to asana. And I've let go of almost all of those now. I probably still have a few shadow conceptions, but my main thinking now, and we're going to draw this back foot in, set the foot flat, push down through the foot, push down through the standing arm, rise, kick out the leg if you've got the room, sweep it back, settle, hands down, down dog, child's pose, or vinyasa. But now I've really come to realize, or come to the conclusion, that it's really all about what happens here. So in our heads and our hearts, if we bring the spirit of yoga to whatever it is that we're doing, that is the purpose. It just is. It just is. So, so, so important. Hands down, downward facing dog. Walk your feet back a little bit more and see if your calves are a little more ready to take on that sharper angle. Let's walk the feet to the hands, and specifically cross ankle over ankle, leg over leg, if you've got the spaciousness and the legs to do that. You can also buy a little spaciousness by having both hands in blocks, if you happen to have them around. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, it's a halfway up. Scoop the belly, press through the crown of the head. You can straighten your legs here. Exhale and definitely bend your knees. Shake everything out. Begin to stack vertebra by vertebra. Head comes over the rest. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, palms over the heart. We're going to do a little balance work. Hands to the hips. Rise onto your left tiptoes. Standing on your right leg, and you're just going to have a little bend in that knee. Let the knee float up, and then tap your left foot back. Float up and tap. Float up and tap. Maybe don't look at me
Maybe look at something that is not going to move on the floor in front of you. We'll shake it out, switch sides. Finding the non-squeaky part of my floor, biggest challenge of my day. And so standing leg is going to have a little bend in it. Right knee is going to lift this time, yeah? Exhale, little bend in the standing leg, tap. Inhale up, exhale, tap. If that doesn't work with your breath, don't worry about it. Gaze is steady. Even our gaze likes to wiggle around like our thoughts. Come back to center. Root into Tadasana. Sweep your hands up, palms overhead, palms over the heart. Bend your knees and start to fold in half. Shake it out. Let's start with the right leg. Step it back. Drop into a basic lunge and inhale up, crescent lunge. Exhale, palms together over the heart. You can see me kind of coiling in already. And we're gonna lean forward a little bit and rise up and reach the arms. Lean forward a little bit, rise up and reach. Lean forward a little bit, rise and reach, and then hands to your front knee. Sink your back heel down to the floor. This next little action seems small, but it is really, really vital for the health of our hips. Spin the heel up, spin the heel down. Spin the heel up, neutral rotation, heel down, external rotation of the hips. Neutral, external. So we're getting in line, we're bringing online the hip rotator cuff muscles. Back heel down, keep it rooted. Inhale, rise up, warrior one. Palms over the heart. Notice if this version of warrior two feels a little more free, a little more spacious in that back hip than it might normally as your first warrior two of the day. Exhale, lean forward, top arm by the ear. Gorgeous side angle shape. And then, yogi friends, settle your hands, step it back to down dog or through the vinyasa of your choice. You don't have to take the version that I was teaching earlier. And from downward facing dog, let's walk the feet to the front of the mat again. I'm just going to show you what that looks like if you have a little extra space. So I bought myself 6 inches here, and that allows me to keep my legs straighter further to the front of the mat without yanking or pulling on the hamstrings. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, knees bend. Fold, shake it out. Inhale, rise it up, come all the way to stand, and I highly recommend you actively engage your glutes here, actively engage your thighs, pressing your knees back, and check that your ribs are not floating in front of your pelvis, right? So it's actually, for some of us, it might even feel a little bit like you're slumping. Beam the arms. Exhale, knees bend and fold. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, scooping, feeling the legs work, feeling the back muscles work. Exhale, light land with the fingertips, left foot to the back. We're gonna rise up to our lunge, crescent lunge, which is so simple, not very fancy. You don't even have to go to 90 degrees, and it's also really, really an important position for our bodies to be able to get into. It's basically like a long, long stride. So from here, we're gonna exhale, coil in. You can bend your back knee a little bit. This is gonna work your front leg. Inhale up, and it's gonna work your core a bit. Inhale up, exhale, coil a little bit. Lots of hip stability in this front leg, right? And then we're gonna bring the hands to the front knee. Keep that hip stability in the front leg. Sink and lift. Sink and lift. Last 3. down, and back heel up. Scoop the belly, rise up, press your palm, back heel down, find your way to warrior one, and then just experiment with how this feels on your hips for warrior two, which is a little more spacious front to back than warrior one. Ribs stay in, try not to let them beam forward. And then still keeping the integrity of the hips, front knee over the middle toes, elbow to knee, arm by the ear. Chin in, ribs in. Please take all hands down. Vinyasa of your choice. Slow motion, settle your knees down to the ground from downward facing dog. Straighten one of your legs. Sink that heel to the floor, pivot on your standing knee, open up. Now we're gonna lift that top leg, keep the toes pointing forward or even a little bit down, and this top arm is gonna pull in and tap that knee. This is an important prerequisite to what we might do next. As you bring it in, pivot, externally rotate the knee, and then set your foot down in front of you. So the bottom of your hand's still on the floor, or if you need a little less weight through that arm or a little less pressure through that wrist, place it up on something, prop it up on something. Top hand for support can be on your front knee, or it can just be kind of floating in front of your belly, and you're gonna lift and straighten that bottom leg, okay? Lower the hips and lift. Lower the hips and lift. 3 and 4. Lower the hands. Remove your block. Down dog. Optional vinyasa, and also feel free to take a resting shape here. I'm going to move so that I can continue to face you. We'll meet and greet in down dog. From down dog, shift it forward to plank and lower one of your legs. Spin the other heel down. Come up into this position. So the knee that's still on the floor has to pivot most likely. Top arm reaches. And we're just gonna dive that under, right? So you've got all of this same spaciousness and action that we had earlier, even on our elbows. And then keep the arm up, float the top leg, turn the toes down a little bit if reasonable, and then this elbow, this floating elbow and floating knee tap together, building a lot of hip stability. Remember, you have the option of the block under your hand as needed. And the next time this knee comes in, see if you can do this without using your hand. Just kind of keep the leg hovering, pivot, hover the foot, set the foot down, push into the bottom hand, straighten the bottom leg. Lower and lift. And if you want to add the arm, you can lower the arm and then lift the arm. Lower, you could also do this, by the way, on your forearm, which I am going to very creatively show you, on the block, like so. So hips lift and hips lower. Hips lift and hips lower. Excellent. Go ahead and settle everything down. We're going to take the hands down to the floor and just come onto our bellies again. Forehead rests. Bend your knees and pivot a little side to side. You can hear my creaky floor still, yeah? Way better than it used to be. Because I've propped myself up a ton here. So now, go ahead and kick your butt with your left leg. So you're gonna feel the heel come in, and we're gonna add a couple of component parts together. Glutes engage, press your pelvis down. Lift your upper body up into that Sphinx shape that we had before. Elbows don't have to be right under the shoulders. Keep the glutes engaged, pelvis pressing. Shift your weight onto the right elbow, reach back, see if you can catch your foot, and if not, you're still getting actually the same, if not more benefit by just reaching in the direction of your foot. So one or the other, press, pull, chop, arm that's still on the floor, chopping strongly. This is not about lifting the leg or compressing the back, it's really about engaging posterior chain. If you want more engagement of posterior chain, it's a little crazy. You take the heel of your hand and arm wrestle with your own heel. So you're trying to press the heel of your hand into the heel of your foot and hold it. Go ahead and release. If you got any kind of cramping, I apologize. That's usually a sign that your hamstrings are not ready quite yet to be engaged at that particular angle. They're just not used to it. We're gonna lift, bend the right knee in, find your Sphinx, chop with the left forearm, right arm reaches, catching or holding. Just holding in the air here. I've got a lot going on in my glutes. I've got a lot going on around my shoulder blade, around my low back. Certainly a lot going on in this standing arm, so to speak. And then, of course, you have the option to hold the foot or to build that resistance into the hamstrings here. And so press lightly if you got cramps on the other side. And then slowly release it down. Shake everything out and root your hands. Rise to table. Curl the toes, get a nice little stretch through the upper body here. And reach and rise it all the way up. Shift it forward to plank. Squeeze your bum and then up and back. Walk your hands this time to the back of the yoga mat for a couple more standing shapes. Again, have a bend in your knees and really just sway side to side. Maybe catch opposite elbow and maybe switch which elbow is on top. You know what I mean? So the one that feels a little foreign ends up being on top. Park your hands on your knees and begin to rise, vertebra by vertebra, all the way to the back, to standing at the back of the mat. And just roll over one set of toes and then the other. Shift your weight onto your left foot. Ribs in, knee can be a little bit bent. Draw your right knee up. Using momentum from your arms and legs, step this foot forward into a nice crescent lunge. Inhale, arms rise up. Exhale, palms together over the heart, curl. Inhale, arms reach by your side, airplane arms. Feel your shoulder blades engaged, chin down. Scoop your belly, inhale, rise up, crescent lunge. Exhale, elbows in, curl and coil. Arms by your sides. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, curl it in, curl and coil. Squeeze the shoulder blades back once you get into place. And then inside hand, left hand roots down, right arm reaches up. So we've been in these shapes before in this practice. You're gonna have the option to pivot on your back foot, stack your legs, or even stagger your legs, top leg lifts. And then all hands down, move through the vinyasa of your choice. And that can include child's pose as you desire. We've got 4 breaths. Knee in down dog. Hands walk back. Ardha Uttanasana, halfway up. Exhale, knees bend. Shake it out this time. Get some oscillation through your body. Let your head rock a little side to side. Float the arms by your sides. Connect your core. Rise up. Palms together over the heart. Shift your weight onto your right leg. Come onto your left tiptoes. Take a little standing bend in your standing leg. Draw the left leg up. Momentum from the arms and the standing leg. Shift it forward and settle. We're gonna really bend in, move into crescent lunge. Exhale, connect into the core. Inhale, rise it up. Exhale, connect into the core. Squeeze the shoulders back, find your airplane arms. Straight line from the crown of the head through that back heel. Curl, rise. Squeeze, airplane. Curl, rise. Squeeze, airplane. And last one, curl and rise. And squeeze and airplane from this airplane. Strong through the back leg, strong through the front leg. Right hand roots down, left arm opens up to the sky. We've been here before. Hand can go out, hand can go in the block if you want a little less weight through the upper body. All the toes pivot to the long edge of the mat or towards the computer screen. And we're gonna float the hips. Option to lift this top foot. Option to lift the leg entirely. Slow motion, with control, settle down. Move through your vinyasa. And I really encourage you, so this is one of our last vinyasas, to just be sweet with your breath. Wait for your breath like you're a surfer riding the waves. And then slowly settle down to your knees and rise into kneeling. We're going to bring the toes together and the knees a little bit apart from one another. So you can see it like this. We're going to reach down the right leg, top arm by the ear for a side bend. And just take a moment of breath here. What's fun about this shape and weird about this shape is like your hips have to engage in a little bit of a different way than they would if we were standing, etc. So all that. Inhale up. Exhale to the other side. Now I've purposely have our knees wider than hip distance apart, and that's so that we can feel the engagement of the glutes, the opening at the front of the hips. Inhale up. And this time, as you lean over, you're gonna also bring your top hand behind your head. So just slide the hand down the leg, top hand behind the head and try to look up a little bit towards the ceiling. You might be feeling this here, you might be feeling this here. So you might be feeling it at the top lats, upper rib cage, or at the bottom part. Inhale, rise. And shake it out a little bit. And then right hand to the back of the head, left hand glides down the hip. Aim to look towards the ceiling if that feels reasonable to you. And you might feel a little stretch here on the left side of the rib cage in the upper part. Or you might feel a little compression on the right side. Try to keep your glutes engaged and pressing forward the whole time. Inhale up. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Squeeze your glutes, drive your knuckles down towards the floor. And as you let go of that interlace, try to keep your hands the same distance they were just a moment ago behind you without the assistance of the other arm. One more breath in this holding pattern. Excellent. Shake it all out. And now place your hands over your chest and over your belly. Again, you want a little bit of space between your knees here. And by the way, cushion your knees for this one. You're gonna want it. You're gonna want it. So lean a little over to your left and see if you can kick your butt with your right foot. And then lean a little over to your right and see if you can kick your butt with your left foot. So what this is gonna potentially do in your body, obviously you're gonna feel it in the hamstrings in a funky way, but you might also notice that you start to compensate a little by sticking your butt back. And that makes you have to use less of these posterior chain muscles. So it's a wacky little trick that you can do, just gravity and your body, to keep your pelvis stable and lift one foot off the floor. If you don't make it up to your bum without getting a cramp, that's actually normal. Just get a little hover under the foot. My hands are giving me some tactile feedback. And then one last active range of motion thing. So we can settle down through the feet, shake it out a little bit, and slide one foot forward into a half kneeling position. If it's your right leg forward, arms are gonna go up and you're gonna pivot to your right. Do your best to face the edge of the yoga mat, the long edge. Squeeze that back shoulder back. Breathe easy and full. From here, palms meet, palms over the heart, and notice that it is normal to not be at 90 degrees with your shoulders. So I'm going to recommend not trying to crank your body completely to the side. Instead, as you lean forward, park your forearm on your knee, or if it feels particularly good, you can get your elbow to the outside, but one or the other, and spin towards the ceiling using your gaze. We've got a tiny bit of a hamstring stretch coming up next. Hold it, hands free. Exhale, rock back, toes up, and then press in, tall kneeling, other side. Inhale, arms up. Ribs in, spin to the leg that is in front, spin towards that side. Palms meet and greet over the heart. Lean forward, either elbow or forearm, but you should be able to hold whatever position you get into in a hands-free way. Optional chin up towards the sky. gentle micro hamstring stretch as we rock back, toes up. Lean in, root your hands, tuck your back foot towards the front, settle. If you're gonna use your blanket or towel roll for Shavasana, roll it up now, set it to the side, feet get rooted at the front edge of your mat, and go ahead and lower yourself down vertebra by vertebra using your elbows as needed. I'm actually going to stay up in seated, and you're welcome to join me for that as well. If you're taking a seated meditation in place of Shavasana, let your legs be comfortable. Don't worry about lotus, half lotus. And give yourself a little bit of support under your bum. It might be your block, it might be your blanket. And if you still need a little bit more support for seated, option to take a blanket under your knees. Wherever you are, allow your eyes to close. Invite a steady quality in your breath. Softening the corners of the lips. Maybe even a little slowing down of your heart rate. Gentle check-in with your thoughts. Are you in the present or in the past? Can you slow down your breath just a notch more? Inviting a turn up to the corners of the lips. If you're on your back for Shavasana, start to move in whatever way would feel authentic to you. Wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes. Circling your wrists. Gently draw your knees into your chest, taking your time to roll onto whatever side feels good. If you're already in seated, you can rock a little side to side. Wiggle your fingers and your wrists as well if you feel like it. And from the floor, gently press up to seated. We'll all bring our hands, one hand over the heart, one hand over the belly. Our final few moments of breathing in unison. And we'll press the palms together over the heart with great reverence for all of the health that we bring to this moment, to these movements. And with great reverence to our well-being and this community that uplifts all of us. Thank you so, so much for being here. Bow down if you choose, and don't if you don't. Thanks, everyone.